Hi, friend. Welcome to step 2 of the foundational protocol. It is all about gut and the immune support. So that is what we're going to talk through in this video. Just getting an understanding of what that means, what we're trying to accomplish here. What are these products doing for us? We are going to start by grounding ourselves in scripture with this verse from Genesis 2:7. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground. This is the perfect anchor verse to take us into this step for several reasons. One of them is that we are using these products from Cellcore, and the linchpin of these products are the humic and fulvic acids, which originate from dirt. In fact, I've heard people call humic and fulvics God's miracle dirt. And we know that Cellcore has their special formulation of the way that they do it so our body can use it really well. That's the carbon technology. But in general, it's one reason that they work so well is that our body really resonates with these elements because it comes from the dirt, we come from the dirt, and so you can see how that makes sense. Also, why this is so significant that we are made from the dirt, which, hello, what is more holistic in that? Being made straight from the earth, from God's creation, with his breath blown into our nose to bring us alive. It's just amazing to think about. But one thing when we're thinking about dirt, thinking about the soil, is that it is teeming with microorganisms. Okay, it is said that a teaspoon of soil holds billions of microorganisms, which include bacteria, fungi, protozoa, viruses. And so knowing that we come from the dirt and that's where these microorganisms live in abundance gives us some understanding about the microbial part of our body, kind of opens up this idea to that. So the dirt is full of microbes, and so are we. We are too. In fact, we have approximately 38 trillion bacterial cells in an adult body, whereas we have only about 30 trillion human cells. So I like to say we are more bug than we are human. It was once thought that the ratio was 10 times more microbial cells than human cells. And that's something I used to share, and maybe you've heard that. But there is so much research and data constantly coming out about this as science learns more and more about our body. But the recent data does suggest that it is a closer to this 1-to-1 ratio with the tip in favor to the microbial cells. So 38-ish, 38 trillion to approximately 30 trillion is what we're looking at. Now, we get most of our bacteria when we are born and come through the birth canal. I have read this called the vaginal whoosh. I have heard this called baptism by bacteria. Lots of fun things here. But depending on how you are born, either vaginally or surgically by C-section, and whether you are bottle fed or breastfed, is going to determine a lot about what kind of bacteria that you get. So we are meant to get this big whoosh, this big baptism of all this bacteria coming through the vaginal canal when we are breastfed. But for those who are born by C-section, who are bottle fed, we are not getting that. And so from birth, this sets you up for this lack of protection, really, because we know that about 70% of our immune system lies in our gut microbiome, is made up of all this bacteria. And so that is why we see a lot of children that are born by C-section have a lot more health issues when they are young, a lot of colds, a lot of ear infections, right? And there are some studies that show that children born by C-section and bottle fed experience more allergies and more autoimmune disorders at a higher rate. Now, listen, this is not to shame anybody who was born C-section or had their children by C-section. I had all three of mine by C-section. Okay. If I knew everything then that I know now, I would probably have pushed harder for a VBAC or a vaginal birth after cesarean. I did not know about that. My first child had to be born by cesarean. But you do have the choice, and it's a discussion that you can have with your doctor to have a vaginal birth if you've already had a cesarean. It does set the child up for better health. My second child came out of me, basically, he was born with eczema. And I was like, I just had this baby. How'd I already mess him up? He like real red cheeks and he was also really constipated. I'm sure he would love to share that I'm sharing all these details, but that's the truth. And I was just so confused. I was like, how did I already mess him up? Like I just had him. And even in the hospital, I could tell. Um, and that's part of that is that he was born by C-section and did not get this wonderful inoculation of bacteria. So that's something to think about. And it's something that holistic health practitioners, or good ones anyway, will consider about your health history, because this is the thing that, again, can set you up for a lot of illness in childhood. So it's something that we want to consider. And we know that that gut issues are probably going to be an issue for those kids or adults that that is in their health history. Okay, we know that most of the bacteria that we have live in our gut microbiome. So we do have them all over the body. We have all of these microorganisms all over the body, okay, which is, again, when we're doing Cellcore, we have to address these things systemically. So, as I've mentioned in the past, I used to put together a lot of gut protocols, and they were good, but we were really staying localized to the gut. What I love about Cellcore is that we're working systemically because of the humic and fulvic acids, because things can go wonky, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But for the most part, most of our microbes live in our gut, and we can, in our intestine, in our large intestine, and we can think about it as a garden. And as in any garden, you're going to have, you hope to have a lot of beautiful plants and flowers. There's always going to be some weeds in the garden. That's just part of it. And we want to, take care of those. What we don't want to happen is for the weeds to take over the garden, right? When the weeds start taking over, they start smothering out the beautiful plants, the beautiful flowers. And that is what can happen in our guts. That these presence of some of these kind of more weedy, weedy bacteria. Listen, you're always going to have helpful bacteria, and you're going to have some ones that aren't so great. That's normal to have some level of those, but just a little bit, just those weeds coming up that the good bacteria, our good plants and flowers can handle. They're thriving, but not the weeds. And so that is the best analogy that we can think of when we're talking about keeping a really healthy gut microbiome, which is really what we are starting to super support here as we get into these next steps of the protocol. Let's talk about how microbes help our body. For one, they help us break down our food, which is really important. They help us produce vitamins and short chain fatty acids. So one of the important vitamins that they help us make are B vitamins. And a lot of people taking B vitamins. A lot of people are vitamin deficient because of their diet, because of their poor gut microbiome. So these microbes are supposed to help us do that. Also help synthesize vitamin K for us. Regulate immune function. So again, 70% of the immune system is located in the gut. And we want to have a diverse presence of this bacteria. So we think back to our garden analogy. When you think of the most beautiful gardens, you see all kinds of different plants and flowers, right? So there's just lots of different species, lots of different colors, lots of different beautiful things growing in a very diverse garden. Or if we're growing a food garden, right? We want to grow lots of different kinds of foods. So this is also what we want to accomplish in our gut microbiome. We want to have a lot of diversity in our bacteria, lots of different species, lots of different kinds. It makes everything stronger when you have some diversity in there. Okay, helps protect you from pathogens. So again, most of our immune system lies in our gut. So it is helping us protect us from the weeds that are coming in that we're exposed to. It influences our mood and mental health, synthesizes neurotransmitters. So that's really important. We have a lot of hormones made in the gut. It influences the way that we regulate and modulate these mood modulators, these different neurotransmitters. So the gut and the brain are very entwined. We're going to talk about that here more in a minute. It helps regulate, microbes help regulate appetite and influence adiposity, which is just a fancy word for fat, fat cells, fat storage, fat making, fat burning, all these things. Adipose tissue is your fat tissue. So it influences adiposity and insulin sensitivity. There are certain bacteria that will influence your body to hold on to calories instead of burn them. And there are some that will facilitate a more energy efficient metabolic process, helping you use your food more efficiently. So that's really important. So there, one of the many reasons that people cannot be experiencing weight loss is because of their poor microbial balance in the gut. Too many weeds, not enough of these helpful bacteria doing all these things for us, breaking down our food, producing these vitamins and short chain fatty acids, helping us use our food really efficiently. Again, these microbes interplay with so many of the hormones, and we again make a lot of our hormones in our gut. They modulate inflammation and they influence our gut permeability and motility. Okay, so how things are moving through the gut. So for the most part, microbes should be helpful, not harmful. Why would God give us, make us more microbial, have more of this microbial constitution, this making up of these bugs, if they were not supposed to be helpful, right? So here's some of those things that they do. They are agents of digestion. We kind of talked about that, but also in the process of not just helping us utilize our food well and make these vitamins and short chain fatty acids and help regulate our appetite and those things, our immune system, they break down dead organisms into smaller particles. Okay, they feed on diseased tissue and eat poisons from the tissue. So let's think about that, because one thing we're talking a lot here as we go through the foundational protocol is how many toxins we're exposed to. Bacteria are nature's way of biodegrading poison. So again, helping us get rid of these poisons. Okay. Now, what do you think happens when we have a lot of poisons in the body, a lot of toxins? There'll be more of a presence of some of these bacteria. Fungi are scavengers of dead matter and decomposers, so also helping us do that. Parasites absorb toxins as well. Viruses or exosomes are messengers or soaps, so they help dissolve tissue that are too toxic for bacteria, fungi, and parasites to eat. Very interesting, right? We're always thinking of these things in terms of how they're bad. Viruses are bad, parasites are bad, fungi are bad, bacteria are bad, right? Again, they are put within our body for a purpose. We're made from the dirt, they come from the dirt. We are supposed to live in this synergistic relationship with them in our body. And that's the way that God made us. And so we should, again, be working together in the body to make us healthy. But things can and do go wrong. So let's talk about some things that destroy the microbiome. This is not an exhaustive list. There are many things that can do this, but antibiotics are one, okay? So let's just pause here for a minute. Let's think back to our, children that are born not having this wonderful inoculation of bacteria and these microbes is coming through the vaginal canal. So we're already set up for kind of at a disadvantage as far as catching colds and getting these, ear infections and such. You're just so much more susceptible because of the way these microbes make up the immune system. So the immune system is just already compromised from birth when we're born by C-section, and if we are not breastfed. And so what does that lead to? A lot of antibiotics. A lot of children taking antibiotics, which are just going in and destroying anything that is in there. I say antibiotics are kind of like an H-bomb. They go in there, they kill everything. They kill the good, they kill the bad. They are not discerning, they're not discriminating. It just kind of kills everything. And when you do that, the more that you do that, it just gives a foothold for the weeds to take over. The weeds become more powerful, taking over the more antibiotics that we're taking. Just really creates a lot of imbalance in gut bacteria because some species don't come back. It just becomes a big old mess in there. Pesticides, herbicides, glyphosate. Oh, terrible. All these things that will destroy the microbiome. We find these in processed foods. Um, so, processed foods, chemicals, toxins, non native EMFs, electromagnetic fields, which we are exposed to, Wi Fi, our cell phones, Bluetooth, all of these things create non native electromagnetic fields, which affect our cell signaling, our gut and bacteria signaling, all kinds of things go crossways because of non-native EMFs. So let's talk about when good bugs go bad. So we know God put these in our body. We know they are there for a reason. They're supposed to do all of these wonderful things for our bodies. Yes, we're going to have a few that are on the weedy side, but for the most part, we're meant to have these beautiful flowers and plants. But something can happen to these microbes when they are exposed, especially to toxins, but really to any of these things that are destroying the microbiome. But especially toxins can cause something called pleomorphism, which the fancy verse definition is the ability of some microorganisms to alter their morphology, biological functions, or reproductive modes in response to environmental conditions. In other words, these dudes change. Okay, they go from good to bad. This picture is kind of scary. They like become little gremlins. If did you ever watch that movie Gremlins, where it starts out as that cute little furry thing, and then they kind of go cuckoo and they start taking over. It's kind of what I think about when I think about these good bugs going bad. They become little gremlins in the body. And I didn't mention this before, but when we have these gremlins, when we have all of these more pathogenic, and when we say pathogenic, these pathogens, it just means these microorganisms that lead to cause disease and cause illness. But one thing, when we have a lot of these weedy bugs, they're hungry and they will drive a lot of your appetite. And you know what they really thrive off of is sugar. And so again, sometimes when we have like this sugar addiction and we feel like an alien is taking over our body, well, it's kind of true because you have some gremlins that have taken over your body and they want sugar and they're like, go get more sugar. And so you're more driven to eat sugar. Again, one of many, many reasons that people can have appetite dysregulation or trouble losing weight. This is just one piece and one possibility of that. But certainly our microbiome is just critical to so many different functions of the body, as we'll learn here. But when these good bugs go bad, they create gut dysbiosis, which means imbalance in the gut, systemic inflammation, and increase our vulnerability to illness and disease. Again, most of our immune system lies in the gut, but again, we have these microbes systemic throughout the body. They're not just in the gut, and so this stuff can be happening anywhere, right? These problems can be happening anywhere in the body, which again is why I love Cellcore and the way that it works systemically. So you might have heard Hippocrates, this quote by Hippocrates. I'm kind of obsessed with Hippocrates. In fact, I did a whole podcast about him. But I mean, just how wise, like, isn't it incredible to think that he said this he lived between 460 and 370 BC, and that he says all disease begins in the gut. To have that understanding at that time without the kind of science that we have today, and just look, really the study of the gut microbiome and these microbes, this is really new science, right? I don't know what took us so long. He told us a long time ago here, Hippocrates did. He also said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. How incredibly, incredibly wise both of these things. When we look at the way that the gut influences the entire body, it is astounding. And that is why our gut is known as our second brain. You might have heard this before. So you can see all of these different areas that the gut influences. So you'll see up top here, it says the gut health axis. An axis is just a bidirectional relationship between something. So we have our gut brain axis, our gut heart axis, our gut skin axis, our gut oral axis, liver, immune, hormone. Okay, and so you can see all the components here of what your gut health will influence in the brain: stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, in the heart disease, visceral fat, type 1 diabetes, plaque buildup with the skin, acne, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis, right? So this is why my C-section child was born and came out of my body with eczema. Oral health, dental caries, which are cavities, gingivitis, abscess, liver, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, toxicity, the immune system. This is going to lead to autoimmune conditions. And, in fact, when we're talking about autoimmune conditions, it's just pretty much an accepted given that there is a gut dysbiosis, a gut issue attached with that. Asthma, inflammation, hormones, thyroid, estrogen, testosterone, weight gain. It's going to influence all of these things, which is why it's so incredibly important to be addressing gut health. And by addressing gut health, we're addressing immune health, since most of the immune system lies in the gut. Let's take just a couple of slides here to look at the gut and the brain. So you can see here that there's this gut-brain axis, this bidirectional communication, information, things that are moving between the gut and the brain. And so the gut influences serotonin, dopamine, GABA, stress, anxiety, mood, behavior. So really so much about the way our mood and the way we see life, the way that we act, incredibly important. And then the brain influences on the gut our motility, so how things are moving, secretion, nutrient delivery, and the microbiome balance. So you have this constant flow, this constant communication. And when things are off in the gut, it's going to really create a vicious cycle of things not working well. Here's one of Cellcore's slides that I wanted to show, talking about the toxins and the gut-brain connection. So if you look over here to the left, you see your healthy gut. You've got your bacteria and fungi in the gut, consume and eliminate many unwanted substances and pathogens. And so it's having, having this healthy relationship with the brain. A toxic gut, on the other hand, you have your friendly gut microbe exposed to toxins. Okay, so remember we talked about that, we have these good guys that go bad. And so they're exposed to toxins, they either die off or pleomorph into bad or infectious pathogens. All right, and right here in the middle, it says toxins in the gut can eventually reach and harm the brain because of the gut-brain axis. But it does give it access when we have this issue, okay? So really important, science is really understanding more and more about the relationship between gut health and mental health. Okay, so let's talk more about what happens, again, when we are exposed to all these toxins and these good bugs go bad, and what's going on here. So increased parasitic activity can stem from our lifestyle and our environment, as we said. These parasites are most commonly found in the colon, but they're vulnerable to, your body's vulnerable to infestation throughout the body systemically, again, in the lungs, in the liver, the brain, the blood, the muscles, the joints, the skin, and other organs. Okay, so they can be anywhere, again, systemic, which is why, again, we want to work systemically and not just be doing a gut protocol. We've got to use these products that move systemically. That's what's so beautiful about the fulvic acid. And again, you have to separate and bring back together the fulvic from the humic, which is what Cellcore does so beautifully. Parasites act like a Trojan horse, holding toxins, parasites, bacteria, yeast in the body. They kind of act as storage tanks, really, to help protect us. And so it's kind of interesting to think about, they start out as, trying to eat up, help eat up some of these diseased tissue, store some of these things. But the more toxic we are, the more they take over, the more they pleomorph, the more they become harmful instead of helpful. And one thing, we hear a lot about Lyme disease, we hear about, heavy metals, um, but and what a lot of people don't understand is that if you want to address heavy metals, if you want to address Lyme disease, you have to address parasites because they are a Trojan horse for these things. They are like a holding tank. And so you can't even really get to treat these things effectively without addressing the parasites. So that is why we start killing off parasites here in step 2. And then as we work through the protocol, we're getting rid of these and targeting some of these things. We got to target the parasite, like break that open so that all these other things can come out and we can target those, which gives you an idea of why you might feel kind of icky, as you're going through this, because we're like breaking these open, all these things are coming out and they're creating all of their bad waste products and byproducts, and all that's affecting you. And so if you feel bad, I mean, you got a reason. You got a reason for it. But it's interesting to think about the fact that everybody has Lyme bacteria in their body. Okay. We do all have some level of that, but it really becomes pathogenic when it pleomorphs from some kind of stressor. Okay. Which is quite often a toxin. So it's going to be very hard to get rid of Lyme disease if you are, still so toxic. And so, we're using our binders here, right? We're using a lot of things to help remove the toxins as we're killing these things off. Okay. All right, so let's talk about some of the goals in step 2 here. What these products that we're using. So we've introduced 2 new products into step 2. We're still taking our biotoxin binder. We are still taking our BCATP. If you have some CT minerals left over, that is normal. You can continue to take those as well, okay? But one of the things we're bringing in here, Para 1. So Para 1 is Cellcore's flagship product. This is the very first product that they started using. It facilitates the removal of unwanted items from the gut. It is this Mimosa pudica seed. That's how you say that, Mimosa pudica. Not a fun mimosa, like with orange juice and champagne. Don't be confused. It is Mimosa pudica seed. Very wonderful for acting as a gut grabber. Goes in and it forms this sticky mass that helps bind up unwanted factors. So it kind of goes in, it scrubs the digestive tract. For whatever reason, I always picture it as like a snowball rolling down a mountain, like rolling down the mountain of your gut and just like picking up the trash along the way. Grabbing all of this junk that has been just, stuck there for all of these years, especially you constipated people that haven't been pooping out all your toxins, and we just get this kind of buildup in the gut. But it's really picking up a lot of things along the way here. Okay, scrubbing the digestive tract. You want to take on an empty stomach away from the other supplements except for Para 2. Okay, we want to take Para 1 at least 20 minutes before eating or about 2 hours after eating. So I think it's easier to time it before eating. You also, of course, want to take this away from your medications. So this is where it gets a little bit trickier when we bring in the Para 1, when we're talking about our scheduling, especially if you take some medication, like say you take your thyroid medication and you have to get up, take that first thing. So you want to make sure in spaces apart, best to keep it at least 1 hour, but better to be 2 hours away. Your like thyroid medication, for instance, any medication away from these products. And so you got to think about how your timing is going to go with this. Now, just to give you perspective, when I used to put gut protocols together, and this is another reason I love Cellcore, I mentioned it before, is that with other binders that I used to use, and most conventional binders also have to be taken away from other supplements and food and medication. So just imagine if you had that whole other component that you were trying to work in here, right? A whole another separate time frame where you had to take something away from something else. And so that was very complicated. And so just for the convenience and the ability to comply to the protocol with these Cellcore binders, because you can take them with other products, not Para One, you can't take them with Para One, but you can take them with food, you can take them with other supplements. We don't want to take them with medication still, but again, just makes it a little bit more easy and convenient, not to mention that they work systemically, unlike other conventional binders that really just stick to the gut and don't offer any kind of electrical charge or anything like that. Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. I meant to give you a warning. Warning, warning. If you are squeamish stomach, look away. Look away before we get to the next slide. Okay? Sorry, I wanted to give you that warning. Forgot this was coming up next. Okay. So this is Dr. Todd. He is the original doctor that started Cellcore. I mean, Dr. J came in, they really did it together, but Dr. Todd started formulating these products because he himself was so sick with Lyme disease. He was just unhealthy in general. He started researching what to do. And so Mimosa pudica, Para 1, was the very first thing that like I said, the flagship product for Cellcore. So this is Dr. Todd on the left, and he is holding a very long something yucky that is probably a rope worm. So that is one thing that you can see start happening now. You might get something like a rope worm, but what you can also get, and is also kind of common as we start with step 1, especially Para 1, you could also get these long ropey things of mucoid plaque. So remember, Para 1's like the snowball. It's going in and snowballing down the mountain and picking up speed and getting all of this stuff, all of this junk off the walls of your colon, picking up all that junk, right? And so that can come out of you in these kind of long stringy things. So it's not always a ropeworm. If you see something kind of long and stringy, it could just be strings of mucoid plaque. And if you want to think about it that way, you can. Sometimes it is actually a ropeworm. But what I want you to see here, really, not to gross you out, but it is what it is. But look how unhealthy Dr. Todd is on the left versus what he looks like on the right. So vibrant, incredible. And Dr. J's his wife was really, really sick. And that's why he actually came in to the company, is because his wife was so sick and she was not getting any help with conventional medicine. So they partnered up. And anyway, they both have their stories of how these products led them to wellness. Okay, so just some more information on Para 1, this Mimosa pudica. It is an Ayurvedic herb used for traditional medical uses, been used in Ayurvedic medicine for a very long time. These powdered seeds become gelatinous and sticky. Again, that's what they're doing here, assisting with detox, acting as that gut grabber, forming a sticky mass and binding unwanted factors. It aids in the normal elimination of biofilms, buildup, and toxins from the body. So that's one thing we want to talk about here, is that a lot of these pathogens will form what's called a biofilm around themselves, which is almost, I think of it as like a protective bubble. It's not actually a bubble, but that's kind of how I picture it. And so one thing that a lot of detoxes fail to do, and so when people have messaged me over the years, like, I did this detox and it didn't seem to work. And so my first two thoughts are you using products that are breaking up biofilms? So before you can even get to the pathogen, in a lot of cases, you got to break that biofilm, like break that protective bubble that they have. So that's one thing, which we are definitely doing here. And the other thing is, are you doing it long enough? That's a little 4-week, 6-week, 1 month, 2 month, whatever detox is not long enough to go in and really give your body the time that it needs to get through kind of all these layers of what we're trying to get at. Remember, we've got a biofilm and then we've got a parasite full of heavy metals and lime and all these other things. It takes time. And then, of course, they have like their little babies. They're in different stages of growth, these different pathogens in the body, these different bacteria and parasites, right? And so if you don't stick with it long enough, you're not giving yourself long enough to kill off everything. And that is why I don't recommend people go in and just do like a full moon cleanse as like for like a first timer. Um, or just doing 1 month of doing like the para kit. So Cellcore has the para kit, which is like para 1, 2, and 3, and there's a month protocol to do it, where you could just do it for a month, or the full moon cleanse, which is 3, 5, or 7 days. Though I think those are great to do more as like maintenance, but not if you haven't done this. You got to go in and do the long-term work that you need to do to get through all these layers, make sure we're addressing everything, so those will be helpful in the future. And I think that's a great way to do it. Do something like this and then use some of those other kits as maintenance products. Traditional uses of mimosa pudica: anti-anxiety, anti-parasitic, anti-venom, antiviral, asthma relief, blood sugar control, liver protectant, wound healing. So again, going back to that, those things that our gut is supposed to, our microbes are supposed to do for us, the way that they help our body, and not harm our body. And so they can affect all of these things, right? So many more things than we have even listed here and even think about. Okay, and then there's Para-2, which supports the body's natural mechanisms for removing unwanted factors, promotes digestive tract health, includes normal bile flow, microbiome composition. So we're going to start, working to bring the flowers and the weeds back into better balance, so the plants and the flowers can grow and get rid of some of these weeds here. Support bowel movements, and it just, by the work, what we're doing here, nurturing the body's immune and antioxidant system, aiding in the inflammatory balance. So when we have a pathogenic infection, when we have all of these weeds overacting in our body, this is a huge source of inflammation. You can imagine, right? The stuff going into the body. So we're using the Para 1 and Para 2. As I said, those are the only 2 new products we're bringing into this step. We're just continuing on using biotoxin binder, BCATP supporting energy. We're still grabbing with the binder, grabbing up some of these toxins, and now we've got Para 1 also coming in there and acting as that gelatinous sticky mass, or that snowball rolling down the mountain, getting everything taken care of. So we are coming at it in a lot of ways. These guys don't have a chance, right? We're going to get them. We're going to get them, but you got to stick with it. And I know it can be tough. I know it can be tough because you certainly can have some symptoms. As I say, I'll say it over and over again. Some people sail through this, never have an issue. Some people struggle and, kind of have some peaks and valleys of how they feel. And it can happen at any time or no time. It just really depends on the person. This is a step where you might start seeing things in your poop if you're looking for it. If you're not, you're probably not going to see anything. And if that's fine with you, that's just fine. Remember that most of these things are not visible to the naked eye. They're in there and you wouldn't even be able to see them. So just know that, just if you are looking for them in your poop and you don't see anything, doesn't mean there's nothing there. Just means that they're so tiny that our human eyes cannot detect them. But there are some that are big enough to be spotted. And so if you are looking, you might see them. You might see some of that mucoid plaque, ropeworm. It's, again, all on the table, all a possibility. So that is what we're doing in this step. I hope that this was helpful, interesting, didn't gross you out too bad. I